So the idea that man must choose, for Adam and Hua to find themselves in the Garden of Eden without any choice, sorry, that bucks the system. It's not the human agenda. It's not the course of human existence on the face of the earth. Just isn't. What are we doing here? How did we get here? Where did we come from? Where are we going? We're here to make a decision, to glorify the Creator and enjoy him forever, to have Eden forever. Okay, but how do you glorify the Creator? Choose to walk in his ways. So you got 613 laws of the, you might say, the Pharisaical rabbinical Judaism. Yeah, but that comes right out of the Torah. Okay, but I've heard people complain about in the Old Testament 613 Jews proclaim their laws. It's like, what a bunch of stupid rules. It's like, wait a second. Somebody did a count that there was something like 1,200 laws in the New Testament. But I've heard it said the only law is the law of love. Really? The only law of the law of love? That's right. Yeshua said, if you love me, keep my commandments. What's the commandment? To love. So if you love me, love me. That's the only commandment. If you love me, love me. Is that true? It's not what he said in the Torah and the prophets. So therefore, it's not what John the Baptist said, and it's not even what Yeshua said. If you love me, walk in my ways. Yeah, walk in my ways. Halakha the derek. Suddenly this stuff becomes really important. And if this is the importance of what he's saying, let me reread this sentence. Let me go back to verse 19. Then I desired to know the truth about the fourth beast, which was different from them all, exceedingly terrifying. Teeth of iron. What do you do with teeth of iron? You chew things up. What's he chewing up? What's in your mouth? Words? Is he chewing up words? Is that translations and different religions and different philosophies? I'm just wondering. Claws of copper? It devoured and crumbled. That means chewing things up, maybe coming up with different languages, and then trampled what remained with its feet. But the word feet is regal, which is also where we get relegation, regulation, religion, custom, habit, and tradition. Trampled with its custom, habits, and tradition, whatever it couldn't chew up with its mouth, with words. If we say, let me guess that this fourth beast, which is different than the standard normal kingdom empire, such as Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome, Kingdom of England, of France, of Germany, of China, of Russian, of Tartaria, I mean, the Mayans, the Incas, the Aztecs, a normal kingdom. No, this is not a normal kingdom. What's it do with its teeth? Chewing something up into bits and pieces. Devoured and crumbled. Devoured and crumbled. Chewing things up. I'm just guessing here that if you chew stuff up with your mouth, if you chew up words into letters, scramble the letters, scramble the meanings of the words. If you know anything about law, about British law, about Roman law, you'll realize that they own the meanings of words. When Clinton was being impeached and the congressman said, is your relationship with Monica? And he says, it depends on what the meaning of the word is. It's because there's a dozen different meanings of the word is in Black's Law Dictionary. And depending on which word you choose, that's the way you answer. And so when Hillary was asked, did you wipe the server? She said, wipe, you mean with a rag? Ha ha ha. She chose the interpretation of the word wipe. So the question is, what do these words mean? This is the reason for this whole study that we're doing. What are the words and what does it mean? And then this idea of chewing things up with teeth of iron, if that can capture a huge percentage of the population with intellectual distraction, intellectual detours off the path, and then trample or pound what remains with custom, habit, and tradition, which has nothing to do with walking on the path that Yahweh told his people to walk on. It's custom, habit, and tradition. We always do it this way. It was good enough for grandma, it was good enough for grandpa and Uncle Joe. It's good enough for me. The old time religion. There was even a song about that. Nothing to do whether it's good enough for this guy or that guy. It has to do with what did Yahweh say and what did he mean? How does he want us to walk? The word walk in Hebrew is halakah, hey lamed kaf. Hey is a prefix, lamed kaf is lakah. There's a certain parasha, lek, lakah, lamed kaf, lek, and it means go, get out, or go on your way. And in Daniel 12, it says, go, Daniel. It's lamed kaf, Daniel. Melech, king, mem lamed kaf, means one who takes the counsel. Mem there is the prefix, one who is in the position of regarding the way to go, the lamed kaf. So if you read that the word melech, and I'm telling you this as a way of studying the language, I'm trying to give you some tools by which to analyze the words, which we're going to look at in just a moment here with the word moed. The vavs and yods are like wild cards that can be dropped in, taken out. It's still the same thing. But if you stick a mem in front, like moed, it's one who is connected to this. That's a moed. One who is a witness or a testifier. One who is at the place you're supposed to meet, because Ayin Dalet is not just a time, but it's a place of appointed meeting, a place of appointed meetings. Therefore, in Leviticus 23, where Yahuwah said, these are my moedim, these are my appointed times. These are the times, and the place was 3 of them. You're supposed to go on an Aliyah festival. You're supposed to walk up to Jerusalem. Let me just say one thing. And only the people who listened last week and listened to this week will know what I'm talking about. Rico Cortez did this whole half-hour thing that we talked about that says Yom Teruah is not a feast. My wife, Karen, was just looking in Nehemiah chapter 8 last night and pointed out they had come back to Jerusalem from being in exile for all these 70 years, and they're having a time of rebuilding the wall and rebuilding their houses, and finally they got to a place of a certain conclusion, but it was the first day of the 7th month. Hey, that's Yom Teruah. It was Yom Teruah. And somebody said, hey, go get Ezra to drag out the Torah scroll and let's listen to it. So Ezra went and he brought the Torah scroll and he started reading, and everybody fell on their face or were looking down, and they were weeping and moaning because they had never heard the Torah. Imagine they'd never heard the scriptures read. They didn't do Bible study. They didn't have this in their hands. They didn't do this analyzing of word for word, letter for letter. This entire people group had never heard the words of the Torah, and it ripped their heart out. And Nehemiah said, wait a minute, this should be a day of rejoicing. This lines up with the beatitude of coming into the fence at the barbecue grill and saying, blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. This is the way I see the Mishkan pattern with the Beatitudes. Why should you mourn when you walk in and hear the Torah? Because you realize how many years of your life you wasted, how far astray you were, how many people you hurt, how you've sabotaged your own life and your own family and your own country and how you've torn Yahuwah's heart apart. They will be comforted. Nehemiah proclaimed a feast. He said, let's have the greatest feast of all. It was Yom Teruah, and they had a wonderful feast there in Nehemiah chapter 8. And it went on for a couple days. He said, this should be the greatest day of rejoicing, that we finally get to hear these words, that we finally get to comprehend. And not only the Levites, but a half a dozen other men took it upon themselves, that they were appointed by Nehemiah to make clearly understood exactly what the people were hearing. That's what this class is. What we're doing with this Eriktology video is Nehemiah chapter 8. And they certainly had a great feast on that Yom Teruah, just so you know. There, I'm trying to plug that in. Whatever he doesn't get whatever this beast doesn't get by messing with your mind and words and education and teaching and intelligent, get them with custom, habit, and tradition. But this, to be the Kedoshim Elyonin, has nothing to do with what we would call science, philosophy, religion, politics, or custom, habit, and tradition. It's what did Yahweh say and how do we do it? That's what this is about. That's what this is about. But let's go down to verse 25 then. He will speak words against, counter to the Supreme One. What are the words of the Supreme One? The Torah. Okay, so if we study the Torah, then he has no leverage over us. And he will exhaust. What's that word exhaust? It means to wear away, to exhaust you, to distract the Kadoshim with stupid things that don't matter, like television or culture or fake news or fear mongering. Wait a minute, he didn't say he was going to destroy them. This word exhaust can mean distract and, you might say, dissipate the strength. Well, how? By listening to his words and paying attention to his culture. Well, if we listen to Yahweh's words and walk in Yahweh's culture, that's our, you might say, defense or offense against this beast. He will plan to alter the seasons in the law. Well, let's go back to Yahuwah's Moedim, because that word season is the word translated Moedim back in day 4 of creation, lining up with the Psalmic. He put the stars in the sky according to their season. That's the word is Moed. The seasons are the spring and the fall, the vernal and the autumnal equinox times. That's when the 2 Moeds are. And the law, the Torah. And they will be given, what will be given over into his hand? The people or the seasons in the law? To give the seasons into the hand of the beast is like Christmas and Easter, or Christmas, the winter solstice, summer solstice. Or that's like, wait a minute, until a time, times, and half a time. Well, here, this is what this says. Until, now we're getting into the essence up here. They, whether it's the Kadoshim or whether it's the law and the seasons, will be given over into his hands until, there's Ein Dalet, time, Ein Dalet Nun, times, Ein Dalet Nun, Yod Nun, Adenin, Ve, and Peleg, Pe, Lamed, Gimel, Aden. So this is translated until. This is translated time. Because of the Yod Nun, which is the Aramaic, and if it was Yod Mem, it would be plural, then they're saying this is times. And they're saying Peleg, which is PLG, they're saying means half. And here, Eden means time again. I'm just telling you where they get it. So they're saying, well, time, that would be a year. Times, that would be multiplied, so that's 2 years. Peleg would be half a year. 1 year, 2 year, half a year, that's 3.5 years. So we're told this is 3.5 years by which the 4th beast gets to chew up, subdue, trample, annihilate, exhaust, tribulate the Christians for 3.5 years. I disagree, and we'll talk about what this means. If this is until, then that means you're on a certain track. Okay, if this 4th beast gets to be distracting, change things, lie, run the world, not as a normal kingdom, a normal empire with a political and military jurisdiction, but maybe it's science and religion, maybe it's philosophy, maybe it's entertainment, maybe it's the amalgamated statue. And I say the amalgamated statue, if we look at Nebuchadnezzar's vision and say, well, first king of Babylon, then he was taken over by Media Persia, then they were taken over by Greece, they were taken over by Rome. Wait a minute, what if it's all combined, amalgamated, combined? The intellectual intelligentsia, like what was in Babylon, the arms, the commerce and military, like the Media Persians, the culture of Greek, the two legs of iron, like what came out of Rome, Christianity and Islam, politics and religion. I mean, these two pillars that hold up the Roman Empire. You know, even on the American Congress, they have what they call fasces, where you come up with the word fascist. There's two bundles of sticks with an axe sticking out of one on either side of in the Senate, and on the back of what used to be the 10-cent dime. That's a symbol of republic ruled by law, and the axe. That's Roman Republic. Why is there two of them? They're like these two legs. I'm saying you could go on and on with the symbology. What if we say until the ones who are the kadosh choose life? Well, if this word Eden means pleasant and delightful, enjoyable, Adenin means really pleasant, really delightful, over the top. Oh, wow, man, this is so great. This is so wonderful. Peleg means to cut or bisect or segment pleasure. So you could read this until good times get to be really good times, and then the good times are curtailed. That's to say that up until the 20th century, things were pretty standard and technology was developing slowly. And then all of a sudden in the 20th century, man, we got airplanes and computers and jet skis and television and all kinds of wonderful things. But then everybody was thrown into lockdown, and now you can't even go to a restaurant. You can't go to a movie theater. That's a Peleg of Eden. So is this talking about right here at the 20th century? Maybe. Peleg means to divide or cut up. You could say, well, Peleg was the guy a couple generations after Noah, and it says in his days the world was Peleged. Peleg was the guy, and the world was Peleged. So was it mapped? Did they go out in boats a couple generations after Noah just to see what the world looked like and said, oh yeah, there's this continent and that one and this one and the Americas, the India and Europe and Asia and Antarctica? Maybe, nobody knows. Or did the Pangean supercontinent break up and shift during his days? Or was the different cultures divided? Nobody knows. It's all conjecture. But something was broken up. But Pelamed, well, that's where you get the word paleo, which is hidden. It's also wonderful. Lamed Gimel, lag, that's where you get the Greek word logo, which has to do with words. It's also where we get the word for legal, which has to do with speaking. So something about language gets broken up in his days, maybe. Of course, that happened at the Tower of Babel, but maybe that there's some. What I'm saying is that all this stuff is maybe. But what's this saying? This is saying this fourth beast gets to prevail and speak words against the Supreme One. It doesn't say it's going to kill us. He says it's going to exhaust the Kadoshim, Elyonin, messing with seasons and law, Moedim, and I think the word law is Dalit Kuf. Anyway, they will only be given into his hand until this happens. But what if we choose life, and not just life, but we choose Yahweh's promise of life? And Peleg, we cut up his words into letters as a way of mapping what it means to choose life. Well, that means we're doing this right now. Because if Peleg means to cut things up and map how it works, to comprehend the Hebrew alphabet, to comprehend how words are spelled, to comprehend how the great mystery of the entire universe, physics, chemistry, mathematics, philosophy, psychology, the way the mind functions, everything is built on the Hebrew alphabet. If John 1:1 goes back to pointing at the word that he first made was these Hebrew 22 letters, well, this is what we're doing right now. So is what we're doing right now, according to this, not telling us that he gets to kill us for 3.5 years, but get to say that right about now, this beast, his days are up? Maybe. Well, that's a positive thing to look at then. But Daniel, boy, that was about 2500 BC. It's been about 2500 years that Daniel's inner self was rattled greatly because he couldn't comprehend it. But I'm just looking at the meanings of these letters that the rabbis say don't even try to do that. Well, we're doing it. Let's look at Daniel 12. If you look at Daniel 12, there's a way to stage the 12th chapter. I started off saying, as for you, Daniel, hide the matters of the book. The archangel Gabriel speaking to Daniel, giving him a plan, giving him a purpose, giving him a job, setting him on task. That's Aleph stuff. Let many muse and let knowledge increase, or many will run to and fro and knowledge shall increase. I'm saying that's in the bet position. That's the second phrase. The third phrase then would be the Gimel. I, Daniel, look, behold, two others standing, one on this side, one on the river bank, one on that side. There's two major schools of thought, almost like the two pillars from Rome. There's this one and that one. And then then in the fourth, I'm just incrementally going, I've talked about this before, staging this chapter. There's one above the waters of the river, dressed in white linen. So whatever that is, he's kind of a messianic figure. Hey, that's Jesus. No, it doesn't say it's Jesus, nor does it even say it's Yeshua. Maybe it's an angel. It doesn't say who it is, but dressed in white linen, robes of righteousness. That's kind of this pure one, humanoid, just in the Dalet position. Well, if I say, wait a second, if I'm supposed to iron the Dalet, then I have to know who that is, or is that why claiming to be this Dalet? And then I could say, well, why is that Dalet in the fourth position of this thing in Daniel 12, and it's reiterated, validated in the sixth position? Then that means, okay, that's that man. Bob is a number 6, it stands for the number of man, who claims to be that door or equivalent to the door, who is then put to the Zion. It's like Yeshua being crucified. So now I can say that Dalet is Yeshua, and Yeshua claimed to be the door, the only access, the only portal to his father's house for us to gimel to the bet of the Aleph. Okay, so that all fits. But you have to put these things together. You have to process to make these things fit together. As for you, Daniel, hide the words and seal the book. Het Tav Mem and Samek Tav Mem until the time of the end. The end? The end of what? The end of the curse? 2,730-year curse? That would be the end of the Northern Kingdom's coma of being locked up. Let many muse and let knowledge increase. But that word for let many muse or run to and fro is Yod Shin Tet Tet, which also is the word for Satan, or to be apostate or deviate or perverse. Okay, so going back to verse 6, one said to the man clothed in linen, that's the Dalet, who was above the waters of the river, and I'm throwing this word hey because it's the fifth position, which is the letter hey, which means to reveal. And he says, hey, how long? He's calling out to the guy, how long till the end of these wonders? Or how long until the concealed end is what it says. And that is the word kuf zadi, kutz, that's end, but it also means wake up. But kuf zadi, meaning end, also means, well, like, I think the word yod kuf zadi means summer or summer harvest. Hey, that's like right about now, at the time of the moed of Sukkot. It also, you're on one track and also then you turn and wake up. That's the same as ayin dalet. It means an until, and then it says, hey, pei, lamed, aleph, vav, tav. The paleot. How long till the waking up of the paleot? Daniel was told to hide the words and seal the book. And then he says, how long to the waking up of that which is concealed? Concealed end, the end of the obfuscation. So what's the subject? The subject is the words being hidden and sealed that Daniel was supposed to hide. That's the subject. It's not necessarily the end of the world. So what I'm saying is that we have to sit here and try to figure out what is this chapter even about? And if it's about Daniel, change the orthography, the skeleton, change the somic of the letters, and put the letters in a bottle with a cork, in a tomb with a stone rolled in front, put that like a body in a grave, lock it up, and it cannot, will not be opened because it's sealed on earth and in heaven until a certain time. And if this is that time, then this is a spectacular occasion for your consideration. How long to the end of these wonders? And then that guy, the Dalit guy, stood there and held up his hand. Oh, that's like the letter Vav. And he swore to swear as Shin Bet Ayin, which is the number 7. That lines up with the Zion. So what I'm saying, incrementally, we're watching this progression like a map, like a secret treasure map, the progressive sequential letters of the alphabet, connected one after the next in this narrative Daniel's going through. He swore by the life source of the world, or he who lives forever, that after a period, periods and a half, well, there's the phrase, time, times and a half a time. Only guess what? This one doesn't say ed, eden, adnin, vepeligaden. This says moed, moedim, vechatzi. We'll get to that in a second. Upon the completion. Well, now he's talking about a certain event has to happen. Upon the completion of the fragmenting of the hand of the holy people, Kadoshim Elyonim, all these would be finished. Wait a minute, what does it mean to have the hands of the Kadosh people stomped on, fractured, broken, crushed, decomposed? Well, what do you do with a basket? You put crumbles in a basket. So this lines up with the letter Tet. I heard, but I didn't understand. That's the Yod. Again, he holds out his hand. We tell me again, go. That's the Lamed. The words are hidden and sealed, mem, like in a womb. They will be elucidated. What will? The words, definitions, interpretations, doctrines, philosophies, religions. The letter Nun. Someplace say the people will be elucidated, clarified, refined. But what I'm saying is that depending on how you put your subject matter, I know I'm going quickly here. We've talked about this numerous times in the past. The wicked will still do wickedly. That's the letter Somic, like being a bad servants, bearing bad fruit, like what we talked about earlier. How's your fruit? None of them will understand. They won't have their eye open with any ability. But the righteous will understand. Why? Because they have the mouth, the open mouth of understanding what Yahweh said. And then from the time, now it seems to be talking back about that time, times and half a time. Well, this lines up with the letter Zadi, which is a sprout. So Het is this place of this time, this expanse, this tenure of being blocked, like being in the grave 3 days and 3 nights. And then Zadi is like this sprout, this resurrection of Yeshua out of the grave, like Jonah being barfed out of the great fish. From the time, verse 11 of Daniel 12, from the time the daily offering was removed and the mute abomination put in place, we'll look at that in a moment, 1,290 years, praiseworthy is he. So he gives an extent. That's like this kuf, this overview. Praiseworthy, well, that's the resh. That's the honored man. Is he who awaits reaches 1,335 years. As for you, Daniel, go to your end. That's burn out your flame. That's your sheen, your spirit. Just you'll come to your end and rest and arise to your portion at the end of the days. Well, there's the promise. There's the top. That's the end of the chapter of Daniel. Daniel's over. That's the last chapter of the book. So right there, I'm trying to show you where there's this map. And I'll give this to you as the write-up, Kurt. But here's the thing. What's this all about? If he's saying, hey, when will this stuff be revealed? Is it the end of the world? No, it's the end of the time when it's being locked up. Moedim Behatzi. Until then. And then what happens? Well, so the Het points at the Zadi. From the time, the abomination. What's that abomination? Well, let me go through that verse. It's verse 11. Vav mem ayin tav. That's from the time. But the word mem ayin means a small weight or in scales like a mustard seed, a little tiny dot. You put this little thing in the scale and it's going to turn. It's like mustard seed of faith, just the littlest bit makes all the difference. Okay, there's something about that word, which is, even though it means from the time, it's also mot is exactly the same word. It means a small weight that you put in the scales that makes things tip, makes things change. The word the removal, hey, vav, samik resh, well, mosar means discipline, correction, chastisement, ethics, bonds, fetter. It's being bound, it's Israel being bound to the walking in the ways of Yahuwah. And when we didn't, we were kicked out into the dispersion for 2,730 years. So the small weight is for us to just say, let's just do what he said. That one little thing, the belief, the faith, but the same word belief is aleph mem nun, amen, which means, okay, yielding. Like the letter Dalet being a red triangle with the point down is the same exact symbol as the yield sign on American highways. Just make the decision to yield to Yahweh's command, request, desire, preference. Okay. Wham! Everything changes. Just that little Dalet of, okay, I yield to that door. Everything changes. The next word, hey tav memyo dalet, ha tamid. Oh, that's the daily sacrifice. Vav lamed tav tav. Well, tav tav means sub, hypo, or under. It's a place where you stand. So it says, well, and when it was taken away, the daily sacrifice was removed. But wait a minute. Memyo dalet means immediately from the hand, like as soon as you make the decision, wham, something changes. But mem vav dalet, derivative words, means mode, fashion, index, meter, a tailor-made fit. A mem dalet is a garment measured to you. So something about this entire world history has been measured to Israel's attitude of either walking in Yahuwah's ways or not, either yielding our hearts to him or resisting him. Lamed tav tav, well, mem lamed lamed is speech or talk. Mem lamed vavhe means escort or debt. It's where you get the word Levi, fullness. It's like the Brit Olam is that which stands. So knowing the letters, I can sit there and say, what is the lamed about? Oh, it's about the teachings of the Torah that he said would endure forever, that our teachers told us was nailed to the cross, done away with, didn't matter anymore. And so we threw them all away, rejected it for the sake of intellectual pursuits and custom, habit, and tradition. Well, we fed the beast. And he said, when we change our attitude, go back to the discipline, the correction of Yahuwah's ethics. Then here's the word reptile, idol, sickening dread, shin kufav zodik. But kufav zodi, hey, that's the same word as end. Wake up, kuf zodi. What's shin kuf zodi? It means reptile, to detest. It's an idol or a sickening dread. In other words, because we went after idols, we created our own monster that has been biting us with his iron teeth and enchanting us with his copper claws for 2,500 years. And soon as it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. That's a very Hebrew thing. You know, Dorothy, I just want to go home. You could have gone home anytime. Just click your heels together and say, I want to go home. And poof, you're home. We could have gone back to Yahweh anytime, just gone back and said, hey, let's just do what he said. Poof, we're back home. And it's like, yeah, but we were under the curse of this monster for 2,730 years. And so, well, as of 2010, we're over. Then here's the word shin mem mem. The next word, it means terror, mute, desolate, insane, astounded, waste, horror. That's what we got for playing with the monster, the reptile, the shakuts. Yod mem, yod mem. I talked once about this and said, well, it means years. and somebody got mad at me and said, hey, you're making stuff up. It really means days. And it's like, listen, you look in the dictionary, Stone's Tanakh translated emim as the word years. Other people say days. It's eras, epochs, periods of time, dispensations, yod mem. See, you were told that it means days. Yom is the word day, but day might mean a period, kind of like Aleph or Ayin Dalet Nun, kind of like Mem Vav Ayin Dalet. What does the word mean? Okay, here, now he's going to give us this count. Aleph Lamed Pei. Well, that means 1,000. But what is Aleph? Oh, it's also ox. It also means taught, trained, and domesticated. So he's basically saying, until you guys quit frolicking with the reptile of insanity and going back to the words that stand forever and discipline yourself as one taught, trained, and domesticated in the house of Elohim, according to his mouth, according to the Lamed Pei, where we get the word laugh in English. Then Mem Aleph Tav Yod Mem. Well, Mem Aleph Hey means 100. So Mem Aleph Hey Yod Mem, Tav Yod Mem. Duplicate, the plural is 2. So they say it means 200, but it means away from Mem, away from Aleph Tav. So let's go back to Aleph Tav. So when asking Sally earlier, hey, the word eti, what does that mean? It means my Aleph Tav. So what is Mem Aleph Tav Yod Mem? It means go to the place of my Aleph Tav and quit being away from my Aleph Tav. But Mem Aleph Vav Yod also means desire or wish. Mem Aleph Vav Tav is a signaler. So you could say that the signal, okay, we're ready to come home now. We're ready to come back and be your Kadoshi now, is that we regard as Aleph Tav. This entire study is a study of his Aleph Tav. The last word, Vav Tav, Shin Ayin Yod Mem. Well, Shin Ayin is where we get the word save, delight, and victory. It's the word Hosea and Yahshua, the Savior, Moshe's sidekick. But this says, wait a minute, could this mean that that for 1,290 days, well, that's not 3.5 years. 3.5 years would be 1260. 360-day years, and if it's 365-day years, it's 1277. This is 1290, so it's not that. So what does this mean? We could say, listen, as long as we want to dance with the reptile, insane, we're wrapped up in no desire and no delight. The word for desire is Mem Aleph Vav Yod, so the Tav Yod Mem would be the suffix, and the word for Shasha, Shinayin, is delight. So we could say the curse of being away from Yahweh is our prayers don't get answered and we have no desire, no delight. And everything that happens to us is a tailor-made garment fit to our attitude. So how do we change? Ayin Dalet Nun, change our attitude. If that's the number from the time of the abomination, what does it mean praiseworthy? Praiseworthy is the man who waits until the 1335. Well, if you look at 1335, that's Aleph Shin Resh Yod. That's the word praiseworthy. Well, Asher means validate, authenticate, blessed, happy, straight. One who waits. Hey, Mem, Het, Kav, Hey. Well, Mem, Hey and Mem are both prefixes. Hey is a suffix. Het, Kav, it means wait for, expect, or to fish with a hook. You're sitting there with a hook, fishing, hoping, waiting. Whether the fish bites or not doesn't matter. You're just out there enjoying the stream and the countryside. But if you're saying, man, I'm hungry, I got to get that fish. But the other interesting thing, if you look at Hey Mem Kaf is the word with Kaf Hey as the suffix, it means fat one, brainy, expert, melt, solve, or solve the problem. By looking at these words and letters, we're solving the big conundrum. Could be what it means. The next word, Vav Yod Gimel Yod Ayin. Gimel Vav Ayin means died or starved to death, expired from waiting. Hey Gimel Ayin is the arrival. Hey Gimel Ayin Hey means touch, reach, or touchdown. You finally get the product of your labor. In other words, the one who sits there and thinks about the problem, when we finally get to that place, finally solves the problem and gets, it's like you work for a couple of weeks and you finally come to payday and somebody pays you and you go, woohoo, now I can pay for some groceries and pay some bills. And that's what the word gimel ayin means. Lamed, yod mem, yod mem. Oh, there's that word imim again. But lamed, yod mem, yod nun pluralized means harbor, haven, or meadow. Lamed, yod nun, this is lamed, yod mem, yod mem. So what I'm saying is if you know what the letters mean and you know how to put letters in and take letters out and you're just messing with the words, you can read this as a lodge or an inn, which is like a harbor, a haven, or a meadow. And you're saying, wait a second. We're talking, remember, about hide the words and seal the book. And then this beast gets to chew up everything and stomp on everybody and wear out and exhaust the saints and prevail. Didn't say it was the tribulation. Didn't say he was going to kill him. It just means he gets to run the Kadoshim Elyonim ragged until they decide to come back and look at Yahweh's stuff. Where has he hidden the harbor, the haven, the meadow, the great lodge? Aleph, taught, trained, and domesticated of his house. And then there's the word shalash, which is 3. I want to make a correction. A couple weeks ago, I put a note in the comment that I was talking about it. The word was shin lamed vav shin, and I was quoting it as if it was shin lamed yod shin, shalish and shalash. It's like, or I said it was shin shin, which is 6, and shin lamed shin, that's what it was, is 3. And it's like, well, I was talking about rejoicing in Yahweh's reality changes things. Shin lamed shin is this number here, which means 3. It means linked chain, intermediate, relay, arbitrator, like a priest, an intercessor, or inserted into in between. So you see the lamed in between 2 shins. The point I was trying to make a couple weeks ago, though I made a mistake off the cuff saying that shin lamed shin means 6. It was actually not true. But rejoicing, plugging in a rejoicing like this lamed between the 2 shins, plugging in the teaching of the Torah and regarding that, because remember, lamed means teach and learn and rehearse and go over it. There's something about us rejoicing in the reality that Yahweh gives us, which changes it and makes it happen. So as I mentioned with that singer Karen Davis saying, when we proclaim his victory while all we see is looming defeat, suddenly he'll turn it around to victory just by proclaiming it and singing as a rejoicing. So here, shalish ma'ot shalishim, 130. And then the last word, chamasha, which would be 50. The word ma'ot, well, wait a second. Mem aleph vav tav. Mem aleph hey is 100, but this says mem aleph vav tav. Well, that's the plural. Mem aleph vav tav. I'm trying to show you that the translators mess around with the definitions of the words just as bad as we're doing, maybe even worse. Aleph vav tav is a signal. It's a letter of the alphabet. Aleph vav tav means consent, agree. It's a token, signal, sign, or symbol. Like I said, the treble clef is a symbol of music. So you could say, wait a minute. The letters of the alphabet somehow hook things together like a relay, like a link in the chain of being armed and equipped, because the number 50 is chumash, which is the number 5, but this is chamasha. The plural of 5 should be 50. This isn't even the plural. So does it say 50? That's the way it's translated. Is it 1335? No, it's 5, not 50. That's right. Humashim is 50. But anyway, the word chumash means not just 5 or plural 50. It means belly. It also means armed and equipped. Praiseworthy or authentic or validated will be the one who thinks about, brainy, melts, dissolves the problem, and gets what has been hidden in the harbor. You find the treasure of the treasure map to become taught, trained, and domesticated according to the linking of the alphabet letters as being our armaments and equipment. That's this whole study of the Hebrew language. And for me to keep going back and saying, hey, look, it's the Hebrew alphabet. It's the Hebrew alphabet. And somebody says, ah, come on, you're going on about that. It's not all about that. It's like, yeah, right. It's not all about that. But it is, because what I'm saying is, if this is what Daniel was told to hide and seal, and this is what we're doing, then it has nothing to do with the 3.5 years of tribulation. Both these phrases, ed adin, adnin vepeleg adin, seems like make the decision to come back and be Yahweh's people and walk in his ways. And then moed moedim vechatzi. What's chatzi? Oh, that's an arrow. So you have to bisect with an arrow shape, cut something in half. But it doesn't just mean only one bisection. On a 6-lane freeway, you've got 5 lines in between that's also a partition. But here's another consideration. If pei is a mouth and peizadi means to explode, or like an open mouth pizza detonating and blossoming, okay? If ayin zadi is, oh, my eye sees that blossom, I understand what's going on, then what's chet zadi? Chet zadi is simply translated arrow or half or 6 months. Chet zadi yod, yod means my, it's possessive. But if chet is a prison, a tomb, a whale in Jonah's case, then the whale vomiting up, that's actually kuf aleph, to vomit, but to throw Jonah out of its belly is chet zadi. Zadi yod is the word for command, or zadi vav is his command. Zadi yod is like Yahweh's personal command. So Yahweh let his personal words be locked up 2,500 years now since Daniel. So chet zadi yod would mean the prison opens up and explodes and allows the release. Well, that validates coming back to these words and letters in Yahweh's covenant once again. Is this 3.5 years of torture, or is this we've endured the torture of a few millennium, and now we're able to come back to what these words mean? This word, again, to deal with ed adan, adnin, vepeleg aden, let's read it a different way. When, evidenced as, ayin dalet, pleasant delight, over the top, and removed enjoyment, peleg aden. That's if things are great and then things get really great and then that's being removed, that's being like thrown down from the pinnacle. Thrown down from the pinnacle of goodness, of greatness, it's a wonderful life. Now, in America, we could look back to 2019 and say, oh, come on, how great was it? Well, it was pretty good. You could go to listen to music, you could go to a restaurant, you could go to school, and then all of a sudden they locked everything down. Threw a bunch of people out of business, told people what they can't do and can do, and quarantined, and got people sick and dead, and on and on and on. Well, that's kind of like a peleg aden. They removed enjoyment, peleg aden. Segregated, quarantined, vax passport, green zone, FEMA camps, internment centers, kind of like the Trail of Tears. What? But the Trail of Tears happened in the 1700s and 1800s. That's not 2019, 2020, but so you can look at different eras of the history of the planet, in different countries, different cultures, and find we can't just point to one time. To do something unwillingly, well, that's imposed mandates. They're making us do this and not do that, and take a vax and not. For us to take on and separate, I will, I won't, this almost looks like, when I send you this, you'll see these notes. Things were going really good. That's like utopia. And all of a sudden, to peleg aden is to create a dystopia. So you'll see a lot of movies where when the things are the best, very high technology and great social order, utopia becomes dystopia, means everything's dysfunctional, and they use the technology against the citizens. And it becomes very government-controlled horrors. Could mean that too. But this looks like a time of, if it's peleg aden, a time of mapping, where you arrange things. Well, that's the concept of ayin resh kaf. Erik has the Eriktology, where we're mapping the alphabet to find out how does Eden work. Mapping the scriptures. How do you spell words? What do the letters mean? How does it all make sense? So I'm saying that there's more than one way to read this sentence, but we're choosing to walk in his ways. We're trying to figure out what those ways are. What did he say? What does it mean? How do we do it? What calendar? Pick a calendar. Maybe we'll change a different calendar next year, but let's just walk in his ways. Let's just do what he said, because that's the culture of the kingdom. That's like separating the wheat from the tares, separating the sheep from the goats, separating true doctrine from fake doctrine. That's ayin dal at noon from ayin dal at noon, which is kind of could be read here too. So if ayin dal at noon is a consciousness or a paradigm, Peleg is a stream or like a river that cuts a city in half, like in Portland, Oregon, or a stream that cuts a property in half. It's a stream of consciousness that separates. It's like separating the right hemisphere or the left hemisphere is the brain. There's another matter here to get into, but before I go into anything else here, when it says, going back to Daniel 7, when it says at that time, Daniel 7:26, the monster will be allowed to reign and rule and do, it says, until this stuff happens, the judgment is set, and they will take away his dominion to be annihilated and destroyed completely. And the kingship, the dominion, and the grandeur of the kingdoms under all the heaven will be given to the Kadoshim Elyonim. Well, that's an eschatology that says, I don't have a tribulation in front of me. I have Yahweh's favor in front of me. This is an incredible time that the world doesn't want to see happen, because they've gotten to rule the roost, as it were, until now. But if I think, wait a minute, they're yelling and screaming because they know their time is up. It's like, their time's up. If I read this scripture that says, this is the time of until their time is up, when Yahuwah's people, or anybody that wants to be his people, comes back, submits, yields their dalet to nooning as he irons to them, and especially also since the timing is, we're after 2,730 years, 2010, then this is our day. And if we feel defeated, if we feel crushed, if we feel like they're going to throw us in the internment camp, if we feel like, oh, the interpretation of Matthew 24 in the book of Revelation and Daniel 7 and Daniel 12 is that, oh, we're going to be tribulated and destroyed. It's like, Yahweh said if the people of Israel wanted to believe, he only brought them out here into the wilderness to kill them because there wasn't enough graves in Egypt, then that was going to happen. He only brought them to the land of Canaan so the giants would eat them, then that's what would happen. But if we choose to believe that Yahweh brought us here because it was the right time, the right occasion, he's going to clear the path. The other meaning of ayin dal at noon is to clear the path of thorns. I believe that's the other meaning of that word, to clear the path of thorns. To feel a sickening dread and to have that sickening dread removed. If I'm right, I can't remember where I wrote that down. But anyway, the point is there is a word that means that.
I'm just loving everything you're saying. It's almost, it's like sort of watching a movie. No, how do I explain that? It's just really, I'm just so excited about Yahuwah. Just so excited about this. Ayin dal at noon.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
How is this any different than the Christians getting a rapture? Like, if they obey their J word, they're going to get raptured out of here, and they're going to avoid any kind of tribulation. How is this thought process any different?
You know, that's a really interesting perspective, because in the rapture, all of a sudden the sky rips open, Yeshua's up there with his hosts, and all of us go, whoop, and we float up. That's a koof picture. Because wait a second, isn't this kind of the same thing? Isn't it kind of the same thing, except we're not floating up into the sky necessarily? Maybe our consciousness is saying, whoa, hey, wait a minute, I finally see Yahuwah, to quote part of another verse, high and lifted up, and his glory or his kavod or his eminence expands to fill heaven and earth. And it's like, I don't need to be afraid of anybody or anything. But I need to sustain my perspective by my own efforts, hopefully by his ruach. But what I'm saying is that I find myself, if I listen to the news or if I read typical English translations of, like Mark sent me a parashah that I read, and I was telling him, gosh, reading Job and Revelation just kicked me in the head and I felt like a deflated balloon. It's like, now I got to get up and go to work. And it's like, yeah, crap. And that's the way I felt, not because of what Mark wrote, but in reading those translations. If I read about, oh, Yahweh's already written into the plan, written into the scroll, he invented 4 beasts. The 4th beast is so powerful, he's just going to chew us up and stomp us. And we have no prayer, no hope, nothing. Gee, thanks. No, that's the way it was translated. And he hid the translations for all these years on purpose because his people didn't want to know his ways. And if all of a sudden we go, wait a minute, we can know what his hand has built, what his heart has intended, what his mind hopes, and he's the one hoping for this great future. And it's the opposite of what they've told us, but we've inherited fake words because the beast was allowed to chew them up until we decided to come back to Ayin Dal at noon, to walk in his ways. And Yeshua said, great, then I'll give you the perspective through the door, through the portal. What a rapturous event. It kind of is sort of the same thing, only we're not flying out of here to the heavenlies. It's like, oh, now we get to stay on earth. And so that made me, and let me just add this before you shut the call off. I was pondering what Mark had written up last week. This is the other thing to add. Isaiah 55, the first 5 verses. I'm not going to go through it all, but the 5th verse says, hear gladly. Nations who do not know will read. They'll learn to read. This is exactly what this video is about, all these classes. Hen, goy lo tada takra. Nations who have no idea will learn to read. And goy no yada veka, nations who do not yada you, who do not know you, who have no personal experience, elika, my relationship with you. In other words, foreign nations who don't know anything about the history of the dynamics of the relationship between Yahweh and Israel, about the curse and the restoration and the commandments and them forsaking them with idolatry and then coming back. They have nothing to do with any of that narrative. They will quickly be brought up to speed. That's the word Yod, Resh, Vav, Zadi, Vav. Resh, Zadi means to run. It means to be quickly brought up to speed. Why? Exactly what this Eriktology thing is all about. Lamed Mem Ayin Nun, what it means that Yahweh Eloheka, Yahweh is your Heleka, your Elohim, and Vav Lamed, Kadosh Israel. What it means to be Kadosh Israel, Ki Pareka. Now it's translated, who has glorified you? Because he has glorified you. Wait a minute. Ki Pareka, that doesn't mean because he has glorified you. How does that mean? So I put together this little phrase. Dori Onega, Ata Ki Pareka La Yahweh. My beloved friend, sauntering together, love play, Boilermaker, Onega. Oneg, when we were at the congregation a few years ago, they had what they call oneg, which is food. But the word oneg is not like, oh, there's this pleasant food, but it means pleasure, delight, dainty, delicate, exquisite, soft, tender, to cause joy, to make sport with. Coquettish, well, that's chanini. That's the same word as daisy, or to be Yahweh's graceful darling. So is this Yahweh speaking? I'm using words from these first 5 verses. Ata, you expressing Aleph Tav. Ki, that's Kaf Yod, which means for, thus, because, when, while, my hand, the insignia of being like me. Well, that's being of his Aleph Tav. That's Aleph Tav Hey is translated Y-O-U, you, but it means Hey to express Aleph Tav. Aleph means first person self-referential. I volitionally express what your letters are all about. Aleph, Tav, Hey. Aleph, I will, Tav, your letters express. Therefore, you might say, because Pei Aleph Resh Kaf. Well, Pei Aleph Resh Pareka means you are adorned, beautified, glorified. It's the word for headdress, diadem, an ornamental turban. The Arabic word fahara, boughs, branches. It's like a Native American feathered headdress, you know, like you see from the Plains Indians. It's Pei Aleph Resh Vav Resh is red, black, glowing, boiling, intense heat. Well, boiling, that's like the word dodi, which is a boiler maker or a kettle where it's the place where your heart is enamored by Yahweh, unto Yahweh, for the sake of Yahweh, you're his own personal ornamentation. Because you have chosen to be adorned by Yahweh, regarding his words and his Aleph Tav, you have become his ornamentation. You have become adorned and beautified to him, by him, regarding him, and therefore his beloved, his David, his Dodi. And therefore we are friends together in league, because it goes back to that verse where it says, we'll see one Ish Yahudi and say, let us walk with you, Amkam, because we, Shema Elohim Amkam, Shemanu Elohim Amkam, we listen and regard Elohim just like you do. We see you're wearing a talit or zitziot. We see you have a regard. You've got his words on your bumper sticker. Let's walk together. This regathering of those who have his heart, that's this occasion. And I just extracted words from those first 5 verses. One other interesting thing about, then I'll put it back to you guys here. The word pareka, Pei Aleph Resh Kaf. Let's break it down, right? We're talking about breaking down words. Pei Aleph means right here. Resh Kaf means, well, similar to oneg. It means soft, tender, delicate, young, timid, thin. It also means to soothe the anger. Pei Aleph, or Pei is an open mouth, but Aleph Resh Kaf means verbose or a long talker, kind of like what I'm doing here. Aleph Resh Kaf is where we get the word archaic, ancient, origin, arch as an archetype, beginning language. It's exactly a synonym with paleo. It means lengthening, prolonging, leader, chief. It's where you get the word archaeologist, archives, archetype, a pattern of first imprinting, which is the paleo language, architect, master builder, art skill, technic, tecton. What I'm saying is the open mouth of the archaic paleo Semitic language is exactly the adorned, beautified, glorified headdress of Yahweh's grandeur. It's to start looking at these words, it plays into itself over and over and over again. I'm trying to show people there's so many ways to read these things, and it keeps validating itself as being the truth of this is a time of great beauty, of being Yahweh's people to walk in his ways, because we choose Ayin Dalet Nun. We choose to walk in the insight of the reality that he's given us. It's not 3.5 years of tribulation, but if we don't, it certainly would be. Anyway, back to you guys.
Hey, did we pray at the beginning? I was struggling with my.
Yes, we
okay.
Mark did.
We didn't pray at the end, so I'm just
we're
gonna.
not at the end yet.
What?
We're not at the Kufsadi yet. We're right here at the end. But before we close it off, is there anything else that anybody wants to say?
Well, then, I kind of want to just rehash a couple things. First of all, we have a Thursday prayer thing. Prayer get together. And we changed the time to 8:30 because people on the East Coast can't stay awake that longer, that much till 10 o'clock. But there's no cutoff time. Like, just join in whenever you can. Secondly, there's people want to contribute financially to this ministry. There's a spot on Erik's website for a PayPal. So feel free to go there. I'll put a link in the description, and feel free to ask questions and comments and everything you can. Leave a like and a share. Helps grow the channel. And then last part is the notes. Erik's notes. I post Erik's notes in the Skype channel every time I get them, so you guys can go there and grab them. Then the link to the Skype is in the description below. There's 51 people now on the Skype call, not like right into the second, and Skype only allows 100, so there's still room for 49 more people. So if you want to join, feel free. It's free, and this is where we get together. So I just want to close out in prayer, I guess. And we do an after show where we stop recording, and sometimes it goes for hours and hours and hours. So Father, I just want to thank you for those who would call themselves Israel, my brothers and sisters right here on this call. I want to thank you for remembering us in the dispersion. I want to thank you that your words are true. That you told us through Moshe in Deuteronomy that we would fall away, but in the latter days we'd come back. We'd start doing your thing. We'd hear your words. We'd start keeping Shabbats. And here we are. You even told us through Noah that this exact thing would happen. And here we are. And I just thank you for remembering us, and that your covenant is true. And I ask all this in Yahuwah's name. Amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
All right, I'm going to shut off the recording. You guys want to... Thanks for joining, everybody.
Sure, it's been a pleasure as always.